You know what? I'll just say this. Is the grocery store gonna get mad at me if I complain about the carts not being returned?
Wait, what?
Like if I come on the podcast and complain about something or talk about something,
Yeah.
am I supposed to talk about no people, places, or things while I'm here?
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope you're having a really good day so far. If you're new here, my name's Taylor. I come to you from Baltimore City, Maryland, and here on my YouTube channel, I feature content that's generally focused on knitting and spinning. And in this week's video, I hope that you have your knitting out or your crochet. Maybe you do cross stitch or needlework or weaving or whatever, I don't know. I'd love to know though. Feel free to tell me what you're working on in the comments, especially if you're here in the Sunday 9 a.m. premiere live chat. We've been getting kind of quiet lately. I know that it's summer. We've all got a lot to do. I am trying to keep it together. Can I talk to you about my week a little bit? I will look, I'm looking at the time and I will limit it to 6 minutes of complaining. Okay, go. I have had not a bad week. I would say a challenging week. I have started a new job back in February. I work for a large organization that requires knowledge of many, many policies, and my job is to enforce those policies in my interactions with people within this large organization. Many people have many specialties, and many people are very, very smart. They are so smart that they don't need to listen to you. They don't need to follow the policies that are set out by the organization. They don't need to know what they are because their time is so valuable. And I believe that's true. I believe that they are very smart people. Their work is very valuable. And somehow nothing I say matters. And it's very frustrating because I know how much it matters and I know that they're not going to get what they want. And they're going to hear that from me later on after whatever amount of time has to transpire because it is what it is. And as I talk out loud right now, I think I'm finding a way of coping with that because I have a much longer background than in this field in customer service. And you know how they say in customer service, the customer is always right. So my experience and my kind of default approach to confrontation is to people please and to bend over backwards. And I bent over backwards a lot. Thursday was just so entitled and unnecessary that I had two very challenging days, which are room for me to grow and expand my capacity for tolerating people's bullshit. But I will say it was bullshit. And I am going to figure out a professional manner of response. I just couldn't do it. I got my manager involved. I was like feeling very defeated. And I think that when I start to feel defeated, I don't want to turn towards my creative projects where I am also challenged. You know, like I purchased a sewing pattern and I have only sewn a couple garments from patterns before, and I was looking over the instructions for it and it just appears like there's so many pieces and so many steps. I took a look at it and I was like, there's no way I can approach this project with the way I feel right now. And it's all compounded by the fact that I only have about 5 or 6 months experience with this organization, and I don't have I have a pretty solid understanding of what I do at this point, but I just don't have a huge amount of confidence that I'm doing the right thing if someone is pushing back that hard. So I was just brain broken by 7 o'clock on Friday. I mean, I I was brain broken. And what do I do when my brain is broke? I don't just scroll online, I start to shop. And there's something about like just the novelty of something new that's comforting. It's like, ooh, that's really nice. Maybe I would feel better if I have that thing to like focus my attention on. Oh, okay, I remembered my point. My point was that I have felt mentally exhausted the last couple days, and I was really, really struggling to let it go because I felt like if I don't address it now, I won't have time to address it later. There are so many other priorities that I will have on my plate next week and for the next month as we move through the fiscal year closeout. And so I was just like ready to ruminate all weekend about how I'm going to approach these concerns I have on Monday. And then I realized that was a terrible idea. It wouldn't get me anywhere. So I have lightened up a little bit. I will say that crafting has helped with that because it's giving me something else to focus on. But until I actually sat down to do the knitting, I was thinking about everything I've ever made that I do not like and how embarrassed I should be to even have a YouTube channel about knitting when I've made so many ill-fitting projects, how I've not really made very many garments at all in the last few years. And, you know, I reminded myself that, you know how they say like life isn't linear, like you have ups and you have downs, and I feel like I've been in a down for like a minute in like so many unimportant ways. Like in the most important ways, I am continuing to live a life beyond my wildest dreams. So my life is great, my life is good, and there are so many great things about being in Baltimore that I'm excited to participate in. Like I'm gonna get out of my house. I am very excited for, what am I talking about? Okay, really quick. I'm really excited to go swimming tomorrow. Brian and I are going to a watering hole up in, I forget where it is. It's in the Gunpowder Trail. This organization publishes the E. coli count for the water in various areas of the Gunpowder Falls water source or whatever. And so it's been low enough that we can go swim in this like public stream or whatever. So very excited for that. Also, there is a Baltimore City pool that reopened for the first time in years that I'm very excited to go swim at. I was planning to go swimming there by myself on Thursday because that's the adult swim hour or two, 5 to 7, but I never made it because of all the BS in my inbox. I think that I've wandered so far in conversation. I don't know which tangent I forgot to travel down, so I'm just going to change the subject now and tell you that I bought yarn. I literally bought it yesterday, so it's not here to show you, and I have no business buying yarn. I picked up, because I watched Casey's Young Folk Knits channel yesterday morning, I picked up 2 project quantities from the Wandering Flock. I will show them to you next week. I expect they will arrive before then. And I got I think it's like sand or sandstone, the beige, like cream color. I got 4 skeins of their cotton lino base. It's a cotton, linen, silk, alpaca blend. So it's like a little bit of alpaca to give it a halo and a little bit more like softness. And I did this for the drape, but I think the linen and the silk give it drape also. I mean, alpaca is drape city, but I think it adds more softness than anything. I haven't even touched it. I've never seen it. I might be disappointed by the second color. I picked up 3 skeins in Pyrite, which looks to be like my favorite color. I happen to not have within reach. But that greeny gold antique ochre shade is just my absolute favorite. All that to say, I'm trying to stick to my budget, and I've been doing a pretty good job. I am committed to my savings rate. I have a significant amount taken right out of my check straight into a retirement account. And then I have also a schedule that I save monthly to contribute to a Roth IRA so that I can continue to set money aside for when I'm aging and dying and need to live without working. So I feel really good about the changes I've made in my financial lifestyle since I guess the last year or so. Maybe I should give you an update on my Fabienne Tee in terms of length. I don't know, I think that this amount of yarn is gonna get me like another inch maybe from what I have here, and then I have a tiny amount remaining here. So depending on the length my Fabienne Tee is gonna have after I get through this remaining piece of fabric, then I will maybe have enough to finish the neckline and the sleeves. I was thinking that because I have a lot more of the wool yarn than the silk mohair, I might hold the two together to get what I got, and then hold 2 strands of this for the neckline and the sleeves, like a few of you mentioned. Brilliant idea. I think I already talked about this, but the gauge of this project is much bigger than I planned for. I did swatch for it, but when I was knitting for the swatch, I was much more careful to hold my yarn like I always do, but I don't ever. Ooh, my arm went through the wrong hole. Shoot. Obviously, it is unfinished, and because most of you are knitters, you know, like, this isn't how it's gonna look when it's done. If you're not knitter watching this channel, you're gonna think, well, that neckline is very wide or whatever, but obviously it's not done. So neckline, sleeves, I'm not going to add any length to the sleeves. I think they're actually at a pretty good regular sort of t-shirt length. So I'm just going to pick up a knit at the underarm and then work a few rows and maybe do, I'll do whatever the pattern instructs for finishing the sleeves. I'm just gonna immediately pick up those stitches, maybe work around and then finish the sleeves. And then whatever I do for the sleeves, I'll repeat for the neck. So maybe I'll do the neck first to get the right width, and then make the sleeve and the neck match in width somehow. And then, so I'll stand up. Because the top portion came out so much bigger than planned, I've turned it into a bit of a dolman style by adding decreases every 3rd round. So you can see that shaping there. And then I was afraid that I might get a little too narrow. So right around the stitch marker, I just stopped decreasing and I'm just working straight. So right at the narrowest part of my waist, it still had a few inches of ease. So I'm just knitting straight until I get to, my navel is like here. So I'm just past the navel, and I want to be able to wear this to work with any type of garment, not just what I'm wearing right now, which it's a nice cropped length to wear with a dress at the moment, but I'm gonna use the last of this. It is possible I could have enough. I don't know. I've been thinking about Tour de Fleece, which is, you know, the annual challenge where we sit and spin at the same time that the Tour de France is happening, and we rest when they rest, which I don't know if I want to rest when they're resting, honestly. I'd probably rather be spinning whenever I can if that's the goal. But, you know, it's just a little thing people do. And I haven't figured out how to join a group I don't think I'd be a good member for a group, so I'm probably just gonna do it on my own. Maybe I'll share on Instagram or in the Stitches and Starlight Discord, because I was trying to figure out the Force Fleece forum on the Young Folk Knits website, but I can't figure it out. I feel like such a boomer sometimes with technology. I couldn't figure out how to join a forum. So whatever, I'm just gonna sit and spin in July. And right now I'm still spinning a 2-ply of, I want to say a baby Jacob, but it's a Jacob Lamb's fleece that I've blended, and I anticipate it will be like kind of like a semi-marled, sort of like semi-stripy sort of fabric. It's a 2-ply, so it'll be marled in some areas, but some it's more blended than other areas. Anyway, but I know that when it is Tour de Fleece, you need to have fiber prepared to spin, and I have no plans of combing anytime soon. So I have pulled out this bunch of solids. I have 6 colors here. This is from Nest Fiber Studios in their semi-solids. It's a Rambouillet fiber. I like to store fiber in like these bed sheet bags with zippers. They're like the very best. If I can keep Star Baby from chewing the plastic. I broke them up. I did, you know, the method with a braid where you break it down the middle. I think I did it into 3 parts, like 3 semi-equal parts, and then I broke them up into smaller little nests. So I think that these might be longer stripes than I might want, so I might break them up even more. My scale is over on the dresser, so I don't know how many grams these are. So I don't know if I want to like split them up even further and have like a very long stripes or very short stripes. I really don't know what I'm doing. I haven't spun a project like this before. Like I don't really do pink, but that's like my favorite pink, and I love the golden like marigold shade, and I think the marigold with the soft pink over here just plays really well off of the light blue and the red. So this is going to be a challenge for me because I want to control it. I want to hyper fixate on it, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to color manage. I mean, I understand the concept of like the more of a color you spin, the longer the stripe, but I don't know how controlled I want to be. I don't think that I want the stripes to be in a sequential pattern. I think I would like it to be random, but because I'm doing a 2-ply and not a single, like I don't know when colors are going to maybe overlap, or whether I should do like each of the singles with different combinations of colors to make it more consistent. I really don't know what to do. So if you have any ideas for me on how to manage my color here, let me know. I probably just shouldn't take it too seriously. I can't even tell you what I'm going to use the yarn for. Okay, I'm excited to spin for Tour de Fleece this July. And so finishing the Jacob is my goal. I know that once I finish spinning my 2nd ply, I will have to let that bobbin rest because the first bobbin has been sitting for months. It is well rested. And that 2nd bobbin is going to have to sit there and rest for at least a little while before I ply the 2 together. And this project will allow me to continue spinning daily without rushing that process at all. I mentioned I didn't cast on my birthday cast on. I just want to focus on one thing long enough that I finish it. I haven't finished a good project in a while, and I say good because I wouldn't give anything an A, right? I wouldn't give a project an A. And I really want to watch more of, I want to say Patrick Vogel, because I know Patrick Vogel, and they look alike. And I wonder if they're cousins or something, but surely they're not. I forget his first name, Mark. I really want to watch more of Mark's channel, and that is going to be my Tour de Fleece binge. If there's a channel on YouTube you think I should watch while I sit and spin in the coming weeks, please share it in the comments below. I would love to know what your yarny recommendations are. I've been consuming so much current events that like my entire suggested for you page on YouTube is skewed. That is it for this week's episode of the Thread to Men podcast. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you want to find me on social media, my name is Taylor E. Owen on Ravelry and Instagram. You can find me on TikTok as Taylor Knits, and I want to thank you so much for being here. And I hope that you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and that you take care.
This reconciliation bill, and you have a piece out just, I think, yesterday about what it's just going to do to not just to Medicaid. And Deborah, I don't even know if you touch on Medicare in there because of the sequestration that could potentially follow from it.
There are actually a couple things with Medicare, but yeah.
The entire sort of like medical system that's going to be like, I don't know if there's ever been a single bill that I remember, at least in the 20 years that I've been doing this, that has such dramatic implications for daily life for so many millions of Americans in a negative way.
It's going to affect every American at some level. And as you've talked about, the fact that we're in this news vortex going on right now where we have immigration stuff and protests and this Iran situation with Israel, it's not getting a lot of attention. And it's hard to get traction on it. We're doing a daily or almost daily newsletter called Trump's Beautiful Disaster, because the bill's called the Big Beautiful Bill. So we went back to the 90s with a 311 reference, Beautiful Disaster, a song by a band there. But anyway, we're covering it because of this impact. But it's been hard to break through. And I don't think people realize the extent to which this will have such a massive amount of disruption, particularly in the health system. So right now, the situation is that a number of rural hospitals in particular are struggling to survive. There is a report that says 1/3 of all rural hospitals, and that's about 700 hospitals across the country, are at risk of closure right now. And if you take $1 trillion out of the healthcare system, which is kind of what this will do, mainly by cutting Medicaid, that's the primary thing, and moving 11 million people off the Medicaid rolls, you're going to get a situation where suddenly the budgets of these rural hospitals will just go into the toilet. I mean, Medicaid is often the biggest line item in these budgets. You're talking about a program that has 73 million people
for revenue
right now. For revenue. And, some hospitals complain about low reimbursement rates in Medicaid, but there are programs that boost that are also being attacked in this bill. There's this program where the federal government will kick in extra money so that doctors will accept Medicaid and hospitals will accept Medicaid. And that was cut in the Senate bill.
That is the provider tax, right?
It's not quite the provider tax. It's a different thing called state-directed payments. But those have been attacked in the Senate bill.
Don't those provider taxes pay for those state-directed payments?
No, the state-directed payments come from the federal government. The provider tax is a separate thing that is a way for states to get more resources in Medicaid. And what happens is the state taxes a hospital. Let's say the state taxes a hospital $100. But what they say is also we'll reimburse you more through our Medicaid program by $100. So the hospital is held harmless. They're paying a tax, but they're getting the money back. But when you increase those rates and the state pays $100, Medicaid is a federal state program. So the federal government is kicking in some of that money. So by doing this circulation, it's a way to get the federal government to pay a little bit more.
Right. Okay.
And the state direct payments are supplements on top of that. So there's two things going on here, right? And both of those are being cut by the Senate bill in particular. There are other cuts in the House bill.
Ends up being more egregious than
worse.
the House bill, which is sort of shocking.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And so what does this mean? There are hundreds of rural hospitals that are likely to have to close because of what happens in this bill. And what does it mean when a hospital closes? There are sick people in the hospital that have to be moved. And if you're talking about a rural hospital, it's probably have to be moved an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours away. And that could be life-threatening in and of itself. The second part, if you have a rural town, and they lose their hospital, it's an anchor for the community. These are often the biggest employers in that community. You could obliterate an entire town by losing their rural hospital. And then 3, for patients, now the nearest hospital to where I live is 3 hours away. If you have a heart attack, if you have an emergency situation, you might not be able to get to the hospital in time. If you have a loved one that has to stay in a hospital somewhere else, you might have to pay to go to a hotel so you can see your loved one and help them through a time when they're sick. There are real burdens for patients. And then think about the burden on the remaining hospitals. So all of a sudden, they're getting patients from a larger area.
But wait a second. If you cut Medicaid, doesn't that mean that those 11 million people they get healthy and never have to go to the hospital, right? Isn't that the theory?
Actually, what happens is those 11 million people no longer have coverage, but if they're sick, they're still going to go to the hospital. And we have a law in this country that says if you are in an emergency and you go to the emergency room, that
you have to
get treated. And that is called uncompensated care. So if that person can't afford it because, they were poor enough to be on Medicaid and they don't have health insurance, they're going to basically go and get treatment without getting paid. And that's a burden on the hospitals.
And then it ends up being a cost that is picked up by private insurance and by essentially the public dole.
More by the hospitals, right? Because the hospitals are the one giving the treatment and not getting paid for it.
But they passed that.
Well, they asked for higher payments, but they might not be able to wrangle higher payments out of the insurance companies. And the other part of this is that more people are going to be coming in, whether they're insured or uninsured. They're going to be coming into that hospital. Hospitals are already understaffed. They already need more physicians. They already need more nurses. If you had a week wait time to see a doctor before, maybe it's 2 weeks now. And the healthcare system is very interdependent. If you have something go down in one side of it, the other side's going to be affected.
COVID. I mean, we saw how supplies had to be moved within the hospital system. If you have shut down a bunch of public hospitals, like Andrew Cuomo happened to have in the run up before COVID, there are hospitals that get overrun in terms of the burden and in cost and whatnot. And so this is going to have, and we should say that as little attention as it has gotten relative to the implications of this, look at the polling on this. Let's play this clip from Harry Enton on, is that his name, Harry Enton?
Yeah.
On CNN. He's never seen polling on legislation look worse, but it's
a soft intensity though, right? Because people don't really know about it.
The biggest chunk of money in terms of cuts are coming from.
That's right.
Where is support for this mega bill?
I'm really surprised when I look at polling data. I look at it every day. But the amount of disapproval for this bill, holy cow, my goodness gracious. And, you mentioned the KFF poll. We're talking about 29 points underwater on the net favorable rating. But that matches the Quinnipiac University poll from last week. when it was 26 points underwater. Oh my God, you need Greg Louganis to get that far underwater. And I mean, we're talking about a negative 41 net favorability rating among independents in the center of the electorate. You rarely ever see pieces of legislation or proposed pieces of legislation as unpopular as this. But here you see it in two polls, 26 points underwater and 29 points underwater. No good.
Extra, read all about it, mister.
I know.
It's 26 points underwater.
I mean,
did this guy fight in World War II?